regulation, they always say, no, that's how we got into this mess, because we didn't have enough regulations. No, in fact, all the people that think we need new regulations 2 or 3 years ago, if it was a lack of regulation that was the problem, why couldn't they see it? Why didn't they make the correct forecasts on the housing market or the economy? Because they were clueless. They're looking after the fact. They're trying to make it up. But the reason I understood it completely accurately was because I knew how government regulations were affecting asset prices, how artificially low interest rates were affecting decisions. You know, when George Bush said that Wall Street was drunk, he was right. They were drunk, right? But he didn't understand why they were drunk. He didn't understand why the whole country was drunk. I did. I knew because the government liquored everybody up. And I could see they were drunk because I wasn't drinking the alcohol. But I saw the other people that were doing it. But they wouldn't have been drunk if the Fed hadn't liquored them up. And that's what we have to understand. So if I get to the United States Senate, what I got to do is I got a mission. I got to convince the other 99 senators that everything they've done in their entire careers has been wrong, especially since the economic crisis. Every single bill that they've passed has been wrong. It's been the exact opposite of what we need. Right? They're listening to the same economists who got it wrong. They see that we're not spending, and they think that they have to do something about that. But we have to stop spending. Right? We have to save. That's the only solution. But the minute somebody starts saving, they freak out. Oh my God, we need spending. Why do they want spending? Because they want to make sure that nobody loses their job at Walmart. Well, you know, there's too many people working there. We can't maintain this phony economy. We have to allow labor to transition from areas it shouldn't be to where it needs to be. People are going to have to lose their jobs in the service sector so we can gain jobs in the productive sector of the economy. We have to make more things. We have to produce more things. That's where the labor has to go. That's where the capital has to go. But it has to transition. If the government simply tries to reflate this bubble, they'll destroy the entire economy. So somebody has to go to Washington with some credibility and convince these guys how serious this problem is. We don't have a lot of time. This whole thing is going to hit the fan sometime during the next 6 years, maybe during the next 2 years. So somebody has to be there to educate them and let them know that what they're hearing from guys at Goldman Sachs or that's wrong. That they have a vested interest that's not for the national interest but for their own interest. These big Wall Street banks are highly leveraged and they need cheap money from the Federal Reserve and they have to keep those spigots open, even if it's draining the wealth of the rest of the economy. Somebody has to be there that knows enough about economics and knows enough about Wall Street to be able to point out these conflicts and that these guys are wrong. And let them think that the country is too important to just continue to try to do what's in their own political interest. Maybe there's a way to get our leaders to actually do something for the country for a change and take a chance that maybe it won't play well in the polls immediately and maybe they won't get reelected. But I think I'm the person to do it. I think I'm the only person that can come to Washington with a track record that I can point out. Look, they said, why should we listen to you, Peter Schiff? Well, look what I said in the past. Why do you listen to Ben Bernanke? This guy's never gotten anything right in his entire life. Look at all the things that he said. Here's where it was wrong. I challenge people to find one example where he's ever been right. So, if he's been wrong consistently in the past, why assume that he's going to change? I can go all into the history and say, here's what I said and here's what happened. Here's what I wrote and here's what happened. So if we keep making the same mistakes, it's not going to get any better. Anyway, I know I want to take time to have some questions, but I'd appreciate if anyone wants to help get me to the United States Senate. I've got my headquarters are in Milford. My campaign website is schiffforsenate.com. I can appreciate, I need all the support I can get. We could use some donations, we could use volunteers, and I can certainly, use your votes if it comes down to a primary. But I'd like to answer any questions you have on where I stand on any issue, and, nothing's off limits, because I've stepped on every single third rail of politics. It doesn't matter, yeah.
Could you tell us a little about your background and what you've done?
Well, yeah, I thought I alluded to that a bit, but I own a brokerage firm, retail firm, Euro Pacific Capital. I started off working in smaller firms, and I took a job at Drexel Burnham, and they actually went bankrupt before I started. I got hired, and I moved up. I was down in Orange County. I got a job at Beverly Hills, where Michael Milken used to work, and so I moved up there. And then before I did, then they filed for bankruptcy. But so then I took a job at Lehman Brothers, and they just went bankrupt recently. Which there's only one thing the government's done right.
Get to the Senate, that'll be perfect.
The only thing the government did right was let Lehman fail. They're convinced that was the one thing they did wrong. That's the one thing they did right. But in any event, so I worked at Lehman Brothers for a while, and I was in retail. So I was dealing with individuals, people dealing with their own money, as opposed to people dealing with other people's money. And I didn't like it because I thought that the retail investors were getting crappy advice. I thought they were just, they were just dumping stock on them. I mean, I'd come in the morning and they would say, "Here's this special stock. Here's the stock. We've got 50,000 shares to unload, and there's a bullet hidden in there." And the brokers would make a lot of money if they sold that stock. And so they would get on the phone and lie to their clients, "Hey, you got to buy the stock. It's great." And because, why are they saying that? Because they're getting extra commission. Why are they getting extra commission? Because the firm's trying to get rid of it out of inventory. Why do they have it? Because they bought it off some institution that wants to unload it. And so I just didn't like that environment. I didn't want to be on the phone, lying to my customers. When for me, that was my business. I didn't really care too much about Lehman. I cared about my own book of clients. I didn't want, that was my reputation. And so I left. And I ultimately started on my own. I started working as an independent broker through a firm. But it was just me, so I could do what I want. I was working out of my apartment in Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles. And early in my career, one of the things I noticed was the bubble in the NASDAQ. And so I was cold calling people. I was buying lists of names, and I was calling people. I was on the phone all day long, telling people to sell their tech stocks, their internet stocks. And mostly I was arguing with people because they were in love with these stocks. And I was trying to say, but it's at 100 times earnings or 1,000. There's no dividend yield. I remember one of these stocks. One time, I was buying this REIT in New Zealand. I was trying to get people to, and I said, "Do you realize that this stock that you're buying, that has only been in business for 6 months, has a market cap that exceeds the entire value of this country, New Zealand?" I said, "How can that be? How can it possibly have?" But they didn't care. They didn't even, so it was just a complete mania. And when the bubble burst is when my business really started to pick up. 2000 was the first year I started making money. I was making no money. In 99, 98, 97, my friends were making a fortune. Because the easy way to make money was to sell internet stocks, because that's what people wanted. I was trying to talk them out of those stocks. It was hard. But when the market turned in 2000, my business started to pick up. And I started hiring people. But as late as 2000, I had no employees. I had a secretary. But now I have over 100. I have 6 offices. Not only do I do retail brokerage, I think I have maybe a couple $1 billion in customer accounts in my retail business. But I do investment banking. I do money management. I have a mutual fund. I have one now. I'm launching another one. I'm opening up my first international office in Europe, Pacific, Canada. Is opening. I'm setting up a precious metals company. I'm doing a lot of things. But I wasn't doing any of that 10 years ago. So I've been able to grow this business despite the fact that the government has put a lot of roadblocks in my path, particularly now. And I got a lot of extra customers, a lot of clients, because of my high profile, during the stock market bubble. And I went around, I spoke in a lot of organizations. If you want to see a really good presentation I spoke in front of 3,000 people at the Western Regional Mortgage Bankers Association 2 years in a row. But the 2006 presentation is online. And in that presentation to mortgage bankers, I basically went over exactly what happened. I described in detail how the subprime market was going to implode, how that was going to take down the entire mortgage market, the housing market, how that was going to usher in the greatest recession since the Great Depression, that would have more than 10% people unemployed, that real estate prices would drop 30 to 50% nationally, that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac would go bankrupt. I wasn't sure if the government would bail them out. I was hoping that they wouldn't, but I was very afraid that they would. And I went over the risks to the financial institutions, the banks. I went over all the fraud in the mortgage sector. I went over the fraud in the rating agencies. I said the rating agencies were putting AAA ratings on junk that was going to collapse. I went over the fraud in the appraisers, the securitization industry. Every single facet of the problems in real estate. And in fact, I have yet to see a better presentation on the real estate bubble than the one I gave back then, even with people who have the benefit of hindsight. Because remember, I was there at the tip of the bubble. In fact, I spoke in 2005 on a panel with the head of real estate, national real estate, all the big guy at Bank of America. All these guys, and I was saying housing is going to collapse. It's a bubble, and they were like, "You kidding me?" Nobody believed me. But I did a lot of these things. I was on TV for years And I got a lot of clients that way. A lot of people contacted me. 200,000 people read my book. So a lot of those people, became clients. So, the firm is growing. Yeah.